Look, if you're feeling this economy, there's no way that you're buying what they're selling right now.
Absolutely.
So the polling is inflated. It always is. It's a brand new, shiny new object. And,
That's right.
and Barack and Michelle last night were really selling it for Kamala and so on and so forth. Well, they pretty much had to because she was next door at a fundraiser in Wisconsin.
Right.
America's better than
It's
this.
a true point.
Yes,
we have
spot
sovereignty as a nation. I don't care how you vote.
Thank you.
I don't care what you think. What I know is this is the United States of America, and if they broke laws to get here, don't spend another dime on them. Deport them. What did we get yesterday? We got more of what she says on the campaign. I was watching you guys earlier. You can do the side-by-sides and see how she keeps repeating herself and so on. My big question today is, you had, and look, this is no disrespect to Eugene and Garen and Tanya who were doing the job. You did not have network anchors up there, though, who do TV every day. And it was a different feel about it, or at least do that pressure cooker type of what we do. The big stars in the party carry her flag for her, and the media does, some of them too.
Yeah,
I mean,
what a shame.
Who gets a pass like that?
What a disappointment the media has been for all of us, really letting down the American people.
Harris Faulkner just made an unexpected, huge announcement that has left her audience stunned. Known for her sharp commentary and insightful reporting, this revelation is something no one saw coming. With her poised and powerful delivery, Harris is addressing an issue that could have far-reaching implications, whether it's about her personal journey, a professional shift, or a bold stance on a major topic. This announcement is bound to spark conversation and leave a lasting impact on both her fans and critics alike. Stay tuned as Harris takes center stage in a way that's sure to surprise everyone.
Saw in Chicago is their annual conference. So any venue that they would have booked by NABJ would have been much larger than, basically a campaign stop. And by the way, NABJ promised, it came out in all of its language, that this was a journalism event and that this was not politics. On all the campaign materials, this was a campaign stop. Well, I'm a little concerned about when you get 51 experts and they have anything to do with our economy, our national security. How often are they this wrong?
Yes.
I mean, we happen to know about this time, but if these are the people that they're consulting on a regular basis, it might explain a lot of the failure that we see. And should we maybe bump some of those people out of the circle? Like, Biden promised that if somebody wasn't doing the right thing on day one, remember the 1,000-person Zoom or whatever it was? And he was saying, I'm going to get rid of whoever doesn't do their job or is not kind. And he had all the things. And of course, he hasn't really applied that promise. But this would be a place, well, maybe those are the people you shouldn't be listening to. And by the way, can you tell us where else they haven't been right so that we can prepare for that? I am shocked by this because I didn't realize we'd migrated so far as a society that we would give criminals who potentially have come across the border illegally the same rights that our people have, which have been mitigated so much by soft on crime policies. Like, I mean, it's gotten so much easier for the criminals and so much harder for the victims. And now the people who break our number one law first coming across the border, number one thing, like you didn't even get here legally, and then they get to do more crime against us. And then you let them go per the things that are on the books for the criminals who are American. Zero bail. Look no further than this case, and you know what's at stake for both of those presidential candidates Thursday night. It is Trump's border policies versus Biden's border politics. And if you want to know just how deep the politics go to the fact that even his Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas couldn't speak of one victim per name. Now, we've had enough of these situations that we're at a tipping point, I would imagine. Like, Biden's going to have to do more than just blame the Republicans. I don't know what Thursday night will look like, but on this Monday, that court, oh my goodness, they saw that mom who was so brave before the microphones today, sitting just feet away from one of the monsters who took her little girl. I remember that moment so vividly because it was the opposite of what anybody would do. Anybody would show you civility. This was July 31st. July 13th, he had been shot in the first assassination attempt on his life. The journalists couldn't even start there with, we're glad you're okay. This is your first opportunity to talk with this group of people, and we're glad you've come today. You know that we're going to ask tough questions. You know that there might be some in the audience who wish that they were asking the tough questions right now. I think that's how you put it. So I am actually surprised and shocked that we have gotten that far. But I don't want to be surprised or shocked about what has to happen next.
Yep.
I want to feel confident that we're going to do the right thing. And that is, if we think these guys came over illegally. I don't know how you don't mention how to make life better here in Chicago. You had Chicago's golden son on the dais last night at that convention, Barack Obama.
Yes, that's right.
And I now call him the closer, the commander and closer, because it was his job to just close the door on Biden. Too bad it wasn't his job when he was in office not to close the door on crime, or at least draw attention to it in his own home city. And he missed that opportunity again last night. Look, she's not day one ready to fight the kind of crime that we're seeing here. It's worse here than it is in New York, at least statistically. It's less random here, perhaps, because it is in some certain concentrated areas. But murder is murder. And anybody can be a target. And we're seeing those numbers tick right back up. And it's really, really disconcerting when you're in the middle of it. The part that you didn't show was the very top of that, when we all sat down first. And the comment was from the ABC News reporter there, this audience didn't want you here. Are you aware of that? I'm paraphrasing it a bit. It was actually a little less pleasant than that. But that was first out of the gate. So it was hostile. It felt like an ambush. And look, he took the bait. Vice President Kamala Harris's past is haunting her now. She pushed to eliminate private health insurance and force 150 million people onto a government plan. Americans are waiting to hear exactly what her current plan will be for their health care. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. This is a big issue for so many people, particularly those who are retired and on a budget. You got to know whether or not you can keep your doctor. The campaign totally flip-flopping on her 2019 position when she was running for president the first time and didn't get a single delegate on her side of the aisle. A senior official is telling Fox News that the VP, quote, will not push single payer or Medicare for all. There's no denying that. It turned into, right off the top, a pretty caustic situation. But what would any of us do if you think you're walking into making history at the NABJ, not by digital, not in a city that you would choose because it's on the campaign trail, Philadelphia, not any of that, but you're going into the largest audience of black journalists all year long. So that was big. Yeah, they're not any closer to getting the deal done. So unlike Trump, when he's asked the question about how you bring both sides in the Ukraine and Russia war, for instance, together, he would do it as president-elect. It would be a phone call. You watched the debate, you know.
Yeah.
No specificity on a place where, did you know that Washington State has 100,000 uncommitted voters from the primary? Like, I get it from Minnesota and Michigan, but that's the number that, so she might have wanted to reach out to that. Bottom line is, nobody pressed her. She didn't feel challenged. She sat back, seemed very comfortable, and that was different than how they treated the Republican candidate for the White House. Well, one thing that's different in past years, like 2016, 2020, is that people will talk to you about how they feel. So I think it's not just disingenuous, it's a lie.
Yeah.
When these leaders in the White House, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, say that they don't know how people feel and that suddenly it's news to her. You know how the polls are being impacted right now? They have a complicit legacy and liberal media to help them out.
That's right.
I mean, that's playing a role. And look, there are questions about, even with all of that, why is it so close?
Yeah.
Why can't she pull away? Because people see the truth, they're living it every day, and they still feel unheard. What is she saying there? I mean, it's the National Association of Black Journalists. When I asked Trump the first question I did, I said, look, there are many black communities. We're not all the same. We vote differently. We do things differently. I set it up in such a way that this is your audience. Why did she go there if she hadn't intended to talk specifically to a question that was asked about that audience? That was, look, if she didn't want to be there talking with whomever, that would be one thing. But black men in particular are a soft spot for her. And part of it is the lack of specificity around the idea of economics and how to change life. And, you know, for people who are really suffering right now. Another area that I thought was a tender spot for her, though, was the Palestinian situation. Hamas versus Israel after Hamas invaded and had a massacre on October 7th against the citizens of Israel. You know what he has that's the advantage in what we were talking about today with his independence is people already know who he is. And independents want that next level of, can you just tell me how you're going to make it better? And it didn't matter how many times the former prosecutor and Kamala Harris came out, and she landed some good ones too. And she was much more buttoned up than the giggly person that we usually see in the word salad and all of that, and that this was not politics. On all the campaign materials, this was a campaign stop. So that's, you know, what did we get yesterday? We got more of what she says on the campaign. I was watching you guys earlier. You can do the side-by-sides and see how she keeps repeating herself and so on.
Today, Jesse Waters, Greg Gutfeld, and Kayleigh McEnany made a groundbreaking announcement on the Faulkner Focus, catching everyone off guard. The dynamic trio, known for their strong opinions and sharp analysis, revealed something that could shake up the political and media landscape. Harris Faulkner, always at the center of impactful discussions, facilitated the conversation with her trademark poise. As the news broke, the studio buzzed with excitement and anticipation, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats. What could this major announcement mean for the future of conservative commentary? Let's dive into the details of this unexpected revelation.
Questions. It's highly dangerous for Peter Doocy to ask questions.
Wow.
Putting aside the ethics here, it's fine if she wants to engage in political rhetoric. Just go do it at the campaign and don't use your White House title and don't stand behind that White House podium. This is 48 hours after the second assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And all of a sudden the rules go out the window. You're going to double down on this rhetoric? 48 hours.
Well, it's really, really, really unfortunate that she could not see that question coming. I mean, a child could have told you that after a former president was nearly killed a second time, you might want to be ready for the question of how many times does it take before you make sure that you've got the protection around him per the White House that looks like a president currently, because that's what it's going to take. You'd think she'd be ready for that. I immediately got on X and said, there's never a hatchack around when you need.
Jesse Waters, Greg Gutfeld, and Kayleigh McEnany each play distinct roles in shaping political discussions on Fox News, reflecting their unique personalities and viewpoints.
Now, despite the second attempt on Trump's life, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre doubled down on referring to Trump as a threat.
Jesse Waters, known for his sharp wit and straightforward delivery, often focuses on critiquing mainstream media narratives and highlighting issues he believes are being ignored or misrepresented. He plays the role of the provocateur, challenging the status quo and offering a voice to conservative frustrations with the current political climate.
How are we supposed to trust the Secret Service to investigate themselves if they won't even tell us who they're investigating? Thankfully, whistleblowers are leaking. The New York Times is reporting the lead agent in charge of security at the Butler rally is Meredith Bank.
Here's a tip, lady. Never interview a guy with a beer in one hand and a Solo cup in the other.
The lane she was dangerously weaving and bobbing and going into, and that's where she didn't want to go, but she couldn't help herself because the answer to the question was she doesn't want to stop saying he's not a threat.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to stop saying he's a threat, rather, because that's how Democrats see it, a threat to democracy. It's their talking point. And they haven't thought it through. Well, could that be part of the problem of why he's in danger? If they have thought it through, then they're complicit. And if they haven't, they're really naive. So Peter calls her out on it. She's upset, calls him dangerous for the question. I call her dangerous for the answer. Stop calling Donald Trump a threat. I mean, people have tried to kill him more than once now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's dangerous for Peter to ask a question of the federal government. You can't do that. It's also dangerous for J.D. Vance to question the media.
Whether he's talking about economic policies, immigration, or cultural issues, Waters frames his arguments around what he sees as the disconnect between the political elite and ordinary Americans. He frequently emphasizes accountability and transparency in government, pushing back against what he perceives as hypocrisy and corruption within political circles.
Primetime looked all over the internet. New York Times is reporting the lead agent in charge of security at the Butler rally is Meredith Bank. Primetime looked all over the internet for information about Meredith Bank. No photos, no bio, it's all gone. Now, we don't know how qualified Agent Bank is. Was she one of the female agents that former director Kimberly Cheadle was promoting with her DEI agenda? We don't know. Was she one of the female agents that was promoted even after failing tests? We don't know. But Butler was a test, and she failed it.
It never goes well. You know, this guy served his country and worked hard all his life. No wonder CNN sees him as the problem.
You know, for those who didn't see, Carly, J.D. Vance brought constituent complaints to his interview. She can fact check them, fine. That's what the media can do. But then he questioned Dana Bash, giving multiple choice questions to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, contrasting it with his interview where he was constantly interrupted. And it's not dangerous for him to question the media.
Greg Gutfeld brings a more satirical and irreverent tone to political commentary. As a co-host on The Five and host of his own late-night show, he blends humor with critique, often mocking both political figures and the media. Gutfeld's role is to provide a comedic yet insightful perspective, using humor to disarm and engage his audience. He often tackles the absurdities of political discourse, pointing out contradictions and the often performative nature of modern politics.
But the ignorant left always forgets that there's a long time between the economy starting to suck and everyone being poor. And the CNN bosses will surely fire that reporter long before they have to sell their own boats. Now, the reporter should have said, you know what, sir, I'm out of my depth here. Thank you for your time. I'm going to go home. Instead, she persisted.
A local SWAT team commander says there was really no direction for Miss Meredith Bank. Secret Service asked for 2 snipers, but never told Butler officials where they wanted them posted. So when locals said, hey, Agent Bank, there's a roof with a direct line of sight to the stage, should someone cover that? Bank passed the buck, said some other unit probably has it covered. This jives with what whistleblowers told Senator Hawley.
Which she doesn't understand. So let's review. According to this genius from CNN, as long as you have money, you shouldn't worry about people who don't. Got it? In other words, he's capable of thinking about somebody else besides himself, unlike that reporter.
His commentary tends to focus on freedom of speech, cancel culture, and what he sees as the encroachment of political correctness on personal liberties. Gutfeld's style is more relaxed and conversational, aiming to make serious topics more accessible and entertaining without losing the substance of his arguments. Kayleigh McEnany, on the other hand, brings a more structured and formal approach to her political analysis.
A major blow for the Harris campaign today after the Manhattan judge in Trump's hush money case delayed sentencing until after the election.
Liberal media pundits quickly claimed that Vice President Kamala Harris won Tuesday's debate. But it seemed undecided voters are not so sure. The New York Times reporting this. Voters said the vice president talked about a sweeping vision to fix the country's most stubborn problems, but they wanted the fine print.
Harris was hoping for Trump to hit that legal pothole in October. And now, legally, Trump has a clear road ahead. Reality is setting in. And Obama world is telling Democrats not to get your hopes up. They say it's very possible that if the election were held today, Trump would win. That's what we've been telling you. Democrat numbers guru Nate Silver says stop ignoring the elephant in the room. Quote, the Electoral College is starting to look like a challenge for Kamala. After a slew of what Silver calls mediocre polls for Harris, he's forecasting Trump winning every single battleground by 1 to 4 points. Silver gives Trump a 62% chance of winning. And the Clintons are sharpening their knives.
As a former White House press secretary under the Trump administration, she draws on her experience to provide insider perspectives on political strategy and media relations. McEnany often defends conservative policies and leaders, particularly those of Donald Trump, while also critiquing what she sees as unfair media bias and misinformation.
That felt really good. Happy Tuesday, everyone. So in Monday's TV address, President Biden appeared to have a spray tan. Aides say he tried using a tanning bed, but when they closed the lid, Dr. Jill kept throwing dirt and flowers on top.
And it was not just the New York Times that found that the debate was not a slam dunk for Harris. Reuters interviewed 10 people who were still unsure how they were going to vote in the November 5th election before they watched the debate. 6, that's about 60%, said afterwards that they would now neither vote for Trump or they were leaning toward backing him. 3 said they would now back Harris, and 1 was still unsure how he would vote.
Even Biden's going to watch Tuesday's debate with low expectations. His team thinks Kamala's public performances are uneven and often not reassuring. They worry she struggles under the glare of national pressure. They find her risk-averse to the point of paralysis.
When media brought up Biden's freshly darkened complexion, Democrat leaders replied that it's all part of their plan to gradually replace him with a person of color.
Her role is that of the defender and strategist, using her knowledge of political communication to articulate and advocate for conservative viewpoints. She often highlights what she believes to be the successes of the Trump administration and contrasts them with current policies, aiming to demonstrate the effectiveness of conservative governance. Together, these 3 personalities create a dynamic and multifaceted commentary on Fox News. Jeremy Clarkson took on Keir Starmer in a debate that pushed the boundaries of political discourse. With his signature wit and sharp commentary, Clarkson didn't hold back, delivering a series of pointed critiques that left Starmer momentarily at a loss for words. As tensions rose, it became clear that this wasn't just another political exchange. It was a clash of personalities that captivated audiences everywhere. What unfolded next was nothing short of a spectacle, as Clarkson's bravado challenged Starmer's composure in ways few expected.
In a savage way. He actually hit me so pathetically weakly that he gouged my temple. I have a scar here when I get a tan, and it's from his signet ring I think he had on, which gouged me here. But the good news was that in hitting my head, he broke his little finger and disfigured it so badly, it's never fully recovered. So we kind of both have our little war wounds. Look, Jeremy Clarkson and I had 10 years of war, and it was particularly annoying that my kids all loved Top Gear. And then eventually he texted me about 4 or 5 months ago, maybe later, it was last summer actually, and it was brilliantly British. It was like at 1 a.m, Morgan, Clarkson here, we should end this. Drink? And then I found out that we shared the same pub without realising it. I said, Scarsdale, 7 p.m, Monday. And he arrived on a push bike looking like he was about to die. And I arrived on foot, and I could see the locals going, holy fuck.
In a recent televised exchange, Jeremy Clarkson, known for his provocative style, engaged Keir Starmer in a heated discussion that quickly escalated. Clarkson's sharp wit and biting humour caught Starmer off guard, leading to moments of awkward silence as the Labour leader struggled to respond. The confrontation showcased Clarkson's knack for turning serious debates into theatrical spectacles, leaving audiences both amused and astonished by the way he managed to humiliate Starmer with just a few well-timed remarks. Social media exploded with reactions, highlighting how Clarkson's charismatic presence dominated the conversation, leaving Starmer reeling. As the exchange unfolded, Clarkson wasted no time launching into pointed critiques of Starmer's policies and leadership style.
Fascinating, isn't it, Bev? This array of front pages across the media, all aligned from left to right. The Guardian, the Daily Mail, even towing the line. Interesting. The Sun front page, actually, if we can get it up, nailed and jailed. Naming and shaming some of the thugs who were involved in rioting this week. One got a 3-year jail term for punching a cop during violence in Southport. Excellent, swift justice within a day or two, banged up. The question begs then, why are those people caught on CCTV at Manchester Airport some weeks ago? Do you remember that incident? Smashing police officers in the face, breaking a young officer's nose into pieces. Why are they still on bail, doing press conferences, playing the victim, saying that they're going to sue the hell out of Greater Manchester Police? If we can deal with people this quickly, white, working class, far-right thugs in jail for 3 years within days, why can't that be sorted out?
With his trademark bravado, he questioned Starmer's ability to connect with the public, using clever anecdotes that painted the Labour leader as out of touch. The studio audience reacted with laughter and gasps, amplifying the awkwardness for Starmer, who attempted to regain his footing. Starmer, visibly taken aback, struggled to counter Clarkson's barbs, leading to a series of stumbles in his responses. Each time he tried to pivot the conversation back to policy, Clarkson deftly redirected it, making it clear that he was more interested in theatrics than serious debate. Viewers were captivated as Clarkson's relentless humor transformed the political discourse into a lively, albeit uncomfortable, spectacle. Social media was abuzz with clips of the exchange, with many praising Clarkson for his boldness, while others criticized him for overshadowing substantive political discussion. Ultimately, the encounter served as a stark reminder of how charisma and performance can dominate the political arena.
Being reported that you're looking at tighter restrictions on smoking outdoors, pub gardens, outdoor restaurants, outside hospitals and so on. Is that something that you are considering?
My starting point on this is to remind everyone that over 80,000 people lose their lives every year because of smoking. That's a preventable death. It's a huge burden on the NHS, and of course it's a burden on the taxpayer. So yes, we are going to take decisions in this space. More details will be revealed, but this is a preventable series of deaths, and we've got to take the action to reduce the burden on the NHS and reduce the burden on the taxpayer.
You said when you became Prime Minister you wanted politics to tread more lightly on people's lives. This is the opposite, isn't it?
I think it's important to get the balance right. But everybody watching this who uses the NHS will know that it's on its knees. We have to relieve the burden, and that's why I spoke before the election about moving to a preventative model when it comes to health. I want the NHS back on its feet, but I also want it fit for the next, 75 years, just as we've had a brilliant 75 years already. And that means taking action in relation to preventable deaths, and these are 80,000 a year preventable deaths.
Leaving Starmer with a lot to think about in the wake of Clarkson's unforgettable verbal assault. As the tension mounted, Clarkson seized every opportunity to push Starmer further into a corner. He delivered punchlines that not only drew laughter from the audience, but also underscored his criticisms, often referencing Starmer's previous missteps and party challenges. With each quip, the Labour leader's composure wavered, illustrating the stark difference between Clarkson's fearless persona and Starmer's more measured approach. Despite attempts to refocus the conversation on key issues like the economy and public services, Clarkson continually brought it back to personal jibes, calling into question Starmer's leadership skills with anecdotes that resonated with viewers. "How do you expect to lead the country when you can't even defend your own position?" Clarkson quipped, prompting audible reactions from the crowd. The aftermath of the encounter sparked debates across social media and news outlets, with pundits analysing the implications for Starmer's leadership and the Labour Party's strategy moving forward. Many speculated on whether this public humiliation would affect Starmer's standing among supporters, or if he could rebound from the experience with renewed vigour.
But it's a legal decision, not a policy decision. And the Prime Minister knows the framework, and they shout, they issued the guidance, they know what the test is, that test has been assessed, we've come to a conclusion, and we've put that before the House to consider.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the Prime Minister's answer, but he'll know that decisions like this also have important and broader geopolitical implications.
I made it very clear on a number of occasions that those involved will feel the full force of the law. So we coordinated, we went through some of the numbers. Over 400 people now have been arrested, 100 have been charged, some in relation to online activity, and a number of them are already in court. And I'm now expecting substantive sentencing before the end of this week. That should send a very powerful message.
In a fiery exchange, Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray have launched a scathing attack on Keir Starmer, leaving no stone unturned in their critique of the Labour leader.
So the Prime Minister tonight reacting to what has happened over the course of the last 48 hours. His conclusion, very simple, it's all the far right. as if they're causing all of the problems. No, the far right are a reaction to fear, to discomfort, to unease that is out there shared by tens of millions of people. Let me be clear. I don't support street violence. I don't support thuggery in any way at all. But I'm worried, not just about the events in South.
As political tensions rise in the UK, Farage and Murray didn't hold back, delivering sharp remarks that have sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Here's what they had to say and how it could impact Starmer's leadership. In a fiery exchange, Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray have launched a scathing attack on Keir Starmer, leaving no stone unturned in their critique of the Labour leader.
Folks, just think about it. Are you proud of what your forebears did? And yes, I know the Second World War generation are dying out, so I understand why there might be slightly less pride in our immediate past. You know, if your father or your mother was involved in the war, if your family lost people in either one of the wars, I do understand for a younger generation that is further.
As political tensions rise in the UK, Farage and Murray didn't hold back, delivering sharp remarks that have sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Here's what they had to say and how it could impact Starmer's leadership. Farage didn't hold back in questioning Starmer's authenticity, suggesting that his political career has been defined by an effort to please everyone rather than taking bold, decisive action.
Starmer, greatest threat, this is the Telegraph, greatest threat to free speech in British history. And you have to believe that he is, because he's saying he's got a whole crew of people looking at Twitter. He's got a whole crew of people looking at the media and all the different things and making sure we say the right things, that we don't incite violence. I mean, the guy is he's bad. He's an absolutely bad.
How's he? What are some of the ways he's going to restrict free speech?
He's going to say you can't say anything.
He accused Starmer of being too aligned with the establishment, failing to represent the interests of those who feel left behind by the political class. According to Farage, this lack of connection with the public will be Starmer's downfall, especially as issues like immigration and sovereignty continue to dominate political discourse. Murray, meanwhile, doubled down on the cultural front.
Is speaking to the fact that there was an information vacuum in the wake of the killings of those girls, absolutely horrific killings. That obviously, across the nation, everybody was furious. Everybody wanted answers. We still don't know what the motive was. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to come out during the trial process at some point. And we know for a fact that if it had been a white guy had stabbed, gone into a mosque or something like that, then immediately.
He criticized Starmer for what he called his overly woke agenda, stating that the Labour leader has focused too much on identity politics rather than addressing more pressing concerns like crime, healthcare, and the economy. Murray pointed out that while Starmer tries to navigate the demands of progressive activists, he risks alienating more moderate or conservative voters who are tired of political correctness.
About the person that's been arrested, there's a legal process, legal precedent set about not wishing to ruin the trial. That's why the information doesn't come out. And especially when the police would have known that the person they got was 17, you don't give information about the person if they're underage. Now, it turns out it was like 3 days underage by the time you got to see a judge, which makes sense actually naming him. But, I mean, none of that. You can have the debate about how our system works, but at the moment, our system works to preserve information to get a good conviction in trial.
Dominating national conversations. Farage didn't hold back in questioning Starmer's authenticity, suggesting that his political career has been defined by an effort to please everyone rather than taking bold, decisive action. He accused Starmer of being too aligned with the establishment, failing to represent the interests of those who feel left behind by the political class. According to Farage, this lack of connection with the public will be Starmer's downfall.
Labor from the top down over the recent years have embraced just about every neo-Marxist folly, from taking a knee for BLM, remember that, to pushing the most extremes of trans activism, but Keir Starmer has suddenly discovered the startling news that men have a penis and women have a vagina. It is a departure from what he has said in the recent past. Indeed, he's performing quite a few backflips in this area. Let's have a look.
Especially as issues like immigration and sovereignty continue to dominate political discourse. Murray, meanwhile, doubled down on the cultural front. He criticised Starmer for what he called his overly woke agenda, stating that the Labour leader has focused too much on identity politics rather than addressing more pressing concerns like crime, healthcare, and the economy. Murray pointed out that while Starmer tries to navigate the demands of progressive activists, he risks alienating more moderate or conservative voters who are tired of political correctness dominating national conversations.
It's also quite alarming just for any man to get into his 60s and discover that men have penises and women don't. It makes you wonder what he's done with his life. But no, of course, this is all just this. I mean, it's so pathetic watching him wriggle like that. He failed to stand up for his very brave female MP, Rosie Duffield, when she simply stated biological fact. He spent a long time doing exactly what we saw him do in one of those interviews, which is...
As Farage and Murray's criticisms reverberate across the political spectrum, the spotlight is now on Keir Starmer to respond. With increasing pressure from both the right and within his own party, his leadership faces a critical test in the months ahead. Whether he can redefine his strategy and present himself as a decisive and effective leader may determine not only his political future, but the future of the Labour Party itself.
And there is no law of war that says you're allowed to start a war and then complain when you lose it. And if Mehdi cares about the Palestinian casualties, as I'm sure he does, then tell your bosses in Qatar to tell their friends in Gaza to stop the war and give back the hostages.
As the political landscape grows more divided, the criticisms from Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray add to the mounting pressure on Keir Starmer. With the next election looming, Starmer faces an uphill battle to prove himself as a leader capable of uniting both his party and the country. Whether he can withstand these attacks and deliver a clear, compelling vision for the future remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the stakes have never been higher for the Labour leader. In breaking news, Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray have just made a major announcement that's turning heads across the political landscape. Known for their outspoken views and strong stances on national and international issues, the duo's latest statement is poised to have significant implications. As speculation grows, everyone's eager to find out what this could mean for the future of British and global politics. Stay tuned as we dive into the details of their bold new move.
Who is leader of the House, has set up a new committee, a new modernisation committee. When you hear that word, you should always have a slight shiver down the spine. And she herself, unusually, is going to chair this committee. It has 14 members, 9 of them are Labour. And I'll tell you what they're really going for. They're talking about second jobs, but in particular, what they're talking about is broadcasting. And it says the committee will consider.
Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray are two prominent figures known for their outspoken views on national identity, immigration, and political correctness. While they come from different backgrounds, Farage as a politician and Murray as an author and commentator, their views often intersect, particularly on issues related to Western values and societal changes in the UK and beyond. We'll explore their key moments, statements, and the impact they've had on public discourse. Nigel Farage first rose to prominence as the leader of the UK Independence Party, UKIP, where he championed the cause of Brexit.
Now, we don't on this programme, we don't on this channel blow our own trumpet or boast. No, 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 you can go to a very loudmouth presenter on another news channel to get that sort of thing. But yesterday was the first day since GB News was launched that we did across the day.
Farage's relentless campaigning was instrumental in pushing the UK towards the historic 2016 referendum. His message was clear. The UK needed to regain control of its borders and laws, and only by leaving the European Union could it truly be sovereign.
What advantages, if any, outside paid engagements such as media appearances, journalism and speeches furnish to the public versus potential conflicts of interest? Well, folks, I want to tell you this. I don't see any conflict of interest between being an MP and coming here 3 evenings a week for an hour. And by the way, if there are crucial votes, I just won't be here.